One, action.
Good evening, everyone. The October 9th business meeting of the Croton Harbor Union Free School District Board of Education is underway. We are right now on item 1.5 of the agenda. Meeting executive session. Recommended action be it resolved the Board of Education hereby leaves executive session and returns to the work session, to the business meeting at 8:53 p.m.
So moved. Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Moving into reports, we have item 2.1, the PKF O'Connor Davies LLP audit report.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'll go with this.
Which will be presented, I believe, by trustee Mayasi.
Got it. Yep.
So if I could, and, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Assistant
Denise,
Superintendent for Business, Denise
This
Harrington.
off?
So this evening,
It's on.
okay, this evening, the financial statements and external audit report will be presented to the board. The audit committee met with our external auditors, PKF O'Connor Davies, earlier to review the statements, and Omar is going to give a brief update from the audit committee, and I will jump in as needed.
Thank you, Denise. So PKF O'Connor Davies did an audit of the financial statements ending June 30th, 2025, and they presented an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion an auditor could present. Regarding internal controls, there were report on those charged with governance, and management letter. Those are materials that we should have. Those were part of the materials presented already to the board. So there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, and no deficiencies in internal controls, as reported by the auditors. The general fund, there was a surplus last year of $258,000 that added to the general fund, and the total reserves in the general fund for the year is $19.5 million, which is a little bit higher than what it was last year. So there's about $2.5 million was appropriated out of the 2025 fund to balance the 25-26 budget, and that's the 4% that's allowed to be carried forward. On annual debt service payments, they're $2.5 million, which is again approximately the same amount. So that's the threshold where that's how you gauge one of the measures for fiscal health, financial health, is that our debt service is at or below or no more than 6% of the following year's budget. Huge shout out and thanks to Denise, Larry, Kelly, and the team for such a clean audit. Any questions? Happy to answer them. Anything else Denise should look at?
No, I just would reiterate, this is like our annual report card, and it's also a year-long process in preparing for this audit. So I'd just like to commend the entire business office staff. Barry Gamson, who's our treasurer, manages all of the finances of the district, Kelly Lent, Sue Camilleri, Risa Ross, Alex Berniker, Thomas. It is a team effort, and they are all hands on deck, and just a fabulous team. So I just want to commend them for their work.
And a fearless leader.
Yeah.
So, if I may, I just want to add one thing, just as people read through this. There is a document that we have, that was presented to us called the management letter, which was basically things that they felt were not deficiencies, but just things that we kind of should look at. There are only 2 items mentioned on that management letter which calls for corrective action. They are, I will say, exceedingly minor. One deals with a perennial issue of looking at clubs that do not have financial activity and determining when those clubs are dissolved or defunct such that their money should be reallocated as As stated in the response that has been prepared, the corrective action response, we have a policy that deals with that. We follow that policy, and we will continue to do so. The other thing that was raised was that there are certain scholarship accounts, trust funds, that are inactive, usually have very small balances, and we need to do something to just clean those up, and that is something that it was recommended we consider as a board. Both of those are so, I'll say, minor in terms of issues that I think it is really commendable that we as a district and we as our business office leadership and everyone in the district is able to keep us in such good financial footings.
And I would just add that what the district has to respond with is called a management response and corrective action plan. The two items that were listed by the auditors, I would categorize them as falling more under the management response as opposed to corrective action plan. One of them is we're already doing, we already reflect the policy change around how activities are determined, whether they're active or inactive. And then the other one around scholarships, that's something we'll update the policy to adjust. Great.
Thank you for digesting all of that and for the audit. Do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I did want to make a comment. Omar, you had questioned the amount that was written down by the auditor?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the amount of fund balance is,
20.
this is fund balance and reserves. It is increased by $258,000 for the
Yeah.
current year, amounting to $25,479,559.
Yes.
You're correct.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Moving into item 2.2, that is my president's report. So I'd like to say good evening, everyone. This continues to be a very busy time of year for board work. And within the district, buildings have been included our back-to-school nights, which is exciting. The district committees were announced this week, and our building planning council meetings are underway. So for those of you who don't know, the BPCs, as we affectionately refer to them, are a mechanism for school-based planning and shared decision-making. There is a building planning council at each of our 3 schools, and each consists of administrators, trustees, teachers, parents, and at the high school, students. This year, the building planning councils are focusing on how district goals are shaping at building level goals and the implementation of that work and the impact on students. Our PTAs have kicked off for the year. We want to thank the PTAs for all the work they do to support enrichment and school spirit. Speaking of school spirit, I want to also thank the boosters for a great fall season as our teams wrap up in preparation for winter sports season, which is now underway via Family ID. The CET PTA is bringing back Boo Fest, love that, on Saturday, October 25th at the CET Upper Field. The PVC PTA is putting the fun in fundraising with Friday Night Stripes on Friday, October 24th. And Dine Around in support of Chef is back on November 8th. So we are excited to begin our upcoming work on board goals and participation in the new district committees. And we will be reporting back to you all during these meetings regarding our progress on those fronts. Members of the board will be attending the annual New York State School Board Association's annual convention from Thursday, October 23rd through Saturday, October 25th in New York City. Thank you to my trustees who will be attending. I look forward to hearing regarding the sessions you attend and report back on the state of school boards in New York. I wish everyone a happy fall, and that will conclude my president's report. So I will go back to item 2.3, hearing of the public. So if you are here to speak, please state your name and your address. Sign the sheet at the podium. You're given 3 minutes.
I'm Kara Reed, 118 Old Post Road North, Croton-on-Hudson. So first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here as a parent who supports the board's commitment to creating focused learning environment for our students. New York State law requires a bell-to-bell ban on phones during the entire school day. Our community strongly supports this. 84% of the surveyed parents came back with support of this ban. 65% of that strongly in favor. I want to help to ensure our implementation is successful. Currently, our cell phone policy places primary responsibility on students to manage their own compliance. Students put phones in classroom caddies or in lockers. Teachers have to monitor compliance throughout the day. But how can we ask students to control technology that's designed to be addictive? This is like asking an addict to manage their own supply. We're setting up our students to fail. I want to take this responsibility off the students and teachers. Students should worry about their education, not managing their cell phones during school hours. Teachers should teach and not police phones. The research is clear. The London School of Economics found that the students with phone bans improved student performance by 6.4%. But these results come from schools where adults physically take the phones and secure them, not the students. Removing again the burden from the students and the teachers. I'm observing that the current approach is not working. The storage box that I saw here on the first night has been moved. It's not in the same place. I hear that students are using their phones between periods in this high school. I hear that students in the PPC middle school are on their phones in class and in the bathrooms. Some teachers implement the policy and some do not. We can't leave this up to individual teachers. It creates inconsistency and puts an unfair burden on them. Research shows that 97% of students use phones during the school day, despite the policies that we have in place. And that's on half compliance. Half measures don't work. We need systems that remove the burden from, again, the students and the teacher. Based on this evidence, I hope for change. There is good news. Our policy already authorizes secure storage, like locked pouches that we know work. Schools using administrative collecting report immediate improvements in their schools. Students engage.
If you want to wrap up.
Sure, I'm almost done. I appreciate it. Sorry. I first just want to understand the evidence behind how you guys implemented what we did. And then I want to understand how we can make the changes. And if there's anything that you guys are currently doing to monitor how the system is currently working. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shawnee Iziak. I'm at 128 Cleveland Drive, Croton-on-Hudson. I'm the parent of a 5th and 2nd grader. So Governor Hochul's statewide investigation and report regarding New York State's bell-to-bell cell phone ban made one thing clear. Personal devices in the classroom have a negative impact on learning, focus, and mental health. Specifically, I will quote, personal communication technology impedes students' ability to learn and successfully demonstrate the ability to think critically and creatively. Schools that have adopted phone-free policies have seen stronger engagement, improved behavior, and more meaningful student interaction both in and outside the classroom. These findings are also in line with the Surgeon General's findings as well. So turning to our district and our data, I'm an epidemiologist, so I love data. Parents were surveyed this summer, and though the results had to be obtained through a Freedom of Information Act rather than being shared proactively or by request, the results are striking. 84% of parents support the cell phone ban, 65% of which strongly supported it, 19 somewhat. Parents reported they felt the benefits would include increased academic focus, better mental health, more in-person interaction, and reduced cyberbullying. Only 11% oppose the policy, and fewer than 6% of parents plan to request an exemption. Based on these results, buy-in within this district was huge. And the district should have been able to implement this ban fully and wholeheartedly, but unfortunately did not, and the current implementation has weakened its intent. Additionally, several state recommendations have not been addressed by this district, which include forming a policy committee with parents, teachers, students, and community members regarding this, including clear guidance on how access and use of devices will be managed. Currently, the section is extremely weak and non-specific. Developing a well-defined plan for handling non-compliance and consequences. What's written under electronic offenses in the Code of Conduct is again vague and lacks clarity. Communicating regularly with families about why this policy matters to build understanding and support. Monitoring and adjusting this policy based on data and feedback, which I personally requested to know when and how this would be done and have not received an answer. We owe it to our students to create learning environments that support their focus, creativity, and mental well-being. And to our teachers who deserve classrooms free of unnecessary distractions and disruptions. The research, the data, and the community are all aligned on this. It's time for the school district to implement a true bell-to-bell policy with the structure, clarity, and transparency our families, students, and educators deserve. Thank you for the time.
Hi, I know how to say my address this time. This is Jill Anderson. I'm on O'Reilly Court. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jill Anderson, and I'm just here on behalf of the Croton Community Collective, or the CCC as we call it. And I just wanted to share with the community what our mission is for those of you that might not know. It's to delay or forego smartphones and social media for our children, to advocate for phone-free classrooms and intentional tech use in our schools, and to foster a local culture that values play, creativity, independence, and real-world experiences, and to support one another through awareness, collaboration, and community action. We've had a lot of wonderful coffee chats, unstructured play dates, and we're just trying to build a community where we set a new norm, that we don't have to rely on technology the way it's been going. Though the CCC is separate from the district, most of us are Croton parents, and we're concerned about the increasing use of interactive tablets and apps within our community, and especially with our youngest learners. Technology can be a powerful tool, but I want to be clear that it is not curriculum, and it should never replace the hands-on, imaginative, human experience that define great teaching, and I feel confident saying that as I am a teacher and I've taught for 20 years. I want to thank and recognize the board because they realize the distinction and your openingness to hear and speak with families and listen to our perspectives on these important issues. I'm advocating for an opt-out process for families that feel that some of this digital programming is not effective or developmentally appropriate for their children. And I'd love some more transparency about how student data is used because it's a major concern. And this isn't just a small group of parents. At the current moment, there's 130 parents in the CCC, and we haven't even really reached out to the community yet because we just had a local mom make our logo and we're just starting to spread. The pendulum is swinging. COVID, unfortunately, made things very different, and it is coming back. There have been whistleblowers all over the country. We're very aware of books that have been published. And I'm going to be honest that if you look at the parents who are most vocal in this district about technology, including my spouse, they all work for major tech companies where they do not allow these things for their children. And that is for a reason, because it's not what's best for children and it's not good for them. We were, as teachers, told to teach coding. I was featured in my district for being a leader for teaching coding. The New York Times released last week how all of the people that went to school for coding can't get jobs, because we can't predict now what's going to happen in 20 years. What we can predict is that kids will need to know how to make eye contact, persevere, collaborate, work together, and that the more we push tech, the more we're not teaching those skills. So I would just also like to close with strengthening the phone policy. My children are not in the middle or high school yet, but the idea that they will have phones and it won't be a strong policy is very disturbing to me. And the CCC would really love to partner with the school district to make sure that we can lead the way in creating schools and communities that value real experiences, human connection, and mindful technology use. Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else? We will move on to our item 2.4, our superintendent's report.
Thank you, Juana. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to cover a range of topics tonight, but let's start with regionalization. We haven't had a public conversation about regionalization, I think, since January. And for folks who haven't been on pins and needles waiting for an update on this, let me just give you a quick summary of what this is about to begin with. So this is an initiative that comes from the State Education Department, the Board of Regents, designed to, as I see it, enhance and encourage collaboration and not consolidation between school districts. It's a mechanism for districts with boards of education, with administrators and others to come together on a regular basis to have conversations about how can we pool our resources, pool our collective strength from the advocacy perspective, from the resource perspective, from the vision perspective, to elevate the experience of students not only in our individual districts, but regionally and of course statewide. And so from the beginning, this is something that we said we wanted to be a part of. Right? Our goal as a district is not just to make public education here better, but to make public education everywhere better. And we've been really fortunate to have this initiative led by Putnam and Westchester BOCES Superintendent Neil Boyle, who has done a terrific job over these past weeks and months in helping to facilitate these conversations. The outcome, as stated by SED from the beginning, is the development of regional plans for each region. And Neil, on behalf of the PNW BOCES region and our component districts, has created that and shared that. Thank you, sir. And so what I wanted to do tonight was to share with the community the 4 aspects of that regional plan as designed and articulated by Neil, and then hopefully have some discussion about which of these we would want to continue our work in on behalf of our district. And so I think what you'll see in terms of these 4 items is that the common thread is that these are struggles not only that we experience here, but that really all school districts experience from a resource perspective. The first being mental health services. And I know Rachel can attest to this because she leads this on a regular basis. Aside from our outstanding clinical team that helps to manage and uplift students throughout our district every day, having a truly established behavioral health network, separate and apart from that, is really a critical aspect of how we can make the experience better for so many kids and so many families that unfortunately are regularly in crisis. And so the goal of this first item on behalf of the region would be to establish that kind of shared services, psychiatric services, mobile, mental health support, partial day programs, urgent care expansion, especially for our youngest kids, pre-K and kindergarten through grade 7, and regional training and social and emotional learning. So I think certainly from my end, and I know from Rachel's, this would be something that we would want to continue our conversation and our work in on behalf of the district. There is no obligation that even as we continue this work that we eventually participate in any of the co-serves or the programs that eventually come out of this. It would simply be us saying we want to continue to collaborate, to work with the region, and an added benefit potentially would be that if there is a program in one of these areas that ends up being potentially beneficial to us, then we can of course avail ourselves of that. 1.2 is cooperative pre-K and CPSE services. Obviously this board, and I think every board has had conversations around UPK and pre-K access and services, and I know CPSE, which is the Committee on Preschool Special Education, again for Rachel and our team is a priority. Many districts face those kind of gaps between the needs and availability of pre-K services and CPSE services, and so the activity here would be to try to coordinate some pre-K placements, potentially available seats, and CPSE services, provider services, in partnership with county officials. So that may or may not be one that we end up actually choosing to participate in, but in terms of our, again, opportunity to continue in those conversations, it's our recommendation that we continue that work on behalf of our district as well. The third is a conversation I know all transportation directors have on a very regular basis, all districts have on a very regular basis, how to better coordinate transportation of our students, particularly as the number of students going to private, parochial, and non-public schools continues to increase. The challenges related to transportation, the budgets related to transportation continue to be a concern for not only our district, but districts across the region and the state. And so the conversation here on behalf of those 18 component districts was to look to try to create some sort of cooperative transportation services, including potentially out-of-district and shared routes for students with special needs. Again, there's no obligation that were this to occur, we have to participate in it, right? We have no obligation to do that, but it's our recommendation that we continue the conversation. And finally, regional internship clearinghouse, right? There's been so much discussion about career and technical education and the value of that, the importance of that, the critical nature of that going forward. And so how can we as a region help to develop a more centralized system to allow for our kids to have different internship and work opportunities, and then how can we figure out how to share perhaps work-based learning coordinators across districts, and particularly districts like ours that are smaller in the region. It's unlikely we'd ever be able to facilitate a full-time position for that, but I think as we think about 5 and 10 years from now, it's going to be a more and more critically important part of the student experience. So again, without obligation to participate in any eventual system, we want to make sure that we continue those conversations. And so it's our recommendation, pending discussion with the board, that I share with Neil Boyle as PNW BOCES superintendent that we would like to continue to participate in all 4 of those conversations going forward, and then engage in them, and then give the opportunity to share back with the board and the community where these are going in terms of a final product. So happy to open it up to board discussion.
Let me begin first as a member of the PNW BOCES board, but also representing this district. I attended the September 10th regionalization meeting at which these were presented and discussed. And I would say I'm in agreement with participating in those discussions, in part because I think as those discussions continue, there will be things that may arise that may be something that we would find that we want to participate in. For example, in the mental health area, one of the things that PNW BOCES is working on is an arrangement with Northwell Health to create on their campus, a mental health and actually general health facility for use by component districts, which will increase the availability of those medical and mental health services for everyone. And we don't even know where that's all going to go. Similarly, with regard to the pre-K and CPSE services, as we know, that is paid for. CPSE is paid for and run by the county. But if we are able to ensure that our youngest community members have high-quality services, there may be less of a burden on us once those students join our system as kindergartners and then go through our system. For the same reason, I look at regional internship clearinghouse. There are a lot of different opportunities and different things that our students at the high school level and those who are looking potentially at career options may want to participate in. Some things that are provided in districts already, like the Peak Skill Culinary Program, and some that might be done through other arrangements. I know one of the things that I hear from members of the community, what happened to the SHOP program? How come our kids don't have SHOP? Electric, metal, things that we did when we were in high school and middle school. But we're talking about something more than that. We're talking about really providing exposure for students to have exposure to opportunities, and once again, things that may lead to careers that they didn't even think about. And so I think the more we can be part of that discussion and utilize what comes out of those discussions as appropriate, the better all of our students will be served.
I have a quick question. How many general areas are they talking about in terms of regionalization, or what were some of the ones that you thought that you decided you weren't gonna?
These are the four.
These are the four.
Yeah, there weren't any that were discussed or recommended that we would recommend rejecting.
So this is
Participation.
what we're all going to be working on.
Right. I will add that in the earlier meetings, there were, during roundtable discussions, there were other things that people brought up as possible things to think about.
Yeah.
And perhaps in the superintendent's roundtables, those were discussed as well, but these are the four that were arrived at for moving forward.
Could I ask on the item 1.2, the cooperative pre-K services? I'm glad to see that there because I know it's one of the concerns I've heard from the community about the need to ensure that we have pre-K seats available for every child that needs them. Could you just describe a little bit more what the coordination looks like? Is this essentially that some regions have seats that are not filled and they can then transfer them over? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, and that hasn't been fully fleshed out yet. I think what's been done is establish it as a priority and a potential outcome. But that is part of the thinking. That was part of the superintendent's roundtable discussion. Was we have every district where there are challenges, or most districts where there are challenges in terms of oversubscription, right? Too many parents looking for too few seats. But then other districts where there are multiple locations with available seats. And that is something that I think for some districts would be an interesting opportunity and an interesting conversation. That sort of kind of clearinghouse or facilitation would be handled by BOCES, as well as the conversation around CPSE services and how those get delivered, and who chairs those meetings and facilitates those evaluations and discussions. There's interest among many districts in the region in terms of finding ways to build efficiencies in there and deliver better, more efficient services to kids. So our recommendation again is we continue in these conversations, seeing where they go. To Neil's point, I think there's opportunity through the conversations to have this go in many different directions, right? Some of which we may end up being interested in participating in and others not, but I think I'll admit I was a skeptic of this initiative as it first rolled out, but having been a part of these discussions, I now am a believer in the importance of this, and I think this will be something that won't be a one-shot initiative for the state. I think this has real legs and staying power because of how effective it can be. And that's without getting into kind of the advocacy end of it, right, which is, in my mind, equally as important, kind of harnessing and leveraging the collective strength of this many districts and BOCES from a legislative and advocacy perspective is really, really important as well.
I have one question also, just because like Neil, I attended some of these earlier regionalization meetings, and I think one thing that I guess I wasn't involved enough in the process to understand fully how this would work is I'm seeing that there is sort of it has to be an expectation, not a hope, that we'll be relying on Westchester County and Putnam County to sort of be partners in this. But I guess one of the things I don't understand is it's like structurally sort of how that would work, because budgets are finite and their budgets are finite as well. And so how are we positioning it, or how is BOCES positioning this to the counties themselves? Because it's a state education department mandate, not necessarily, again, funded for really anybody.
Yeah.
Like how it sounds really great in theory, and I think there's clearly the needs are identified. The advocacy piece I don't think we can undersell, because I think that is actually where the numbers and the collective actually does move the needle with the legislature. But is there anything you can tell us about that piece of it?
Yeah, and so, again, some of this is still in kind of the early developmental stages, but one of the things that we've talked about is leveraging the concept of multiple regions having similar priorities, and then advocating for those priorities at the state level, right, with Betty Rosa, with SED, across the street, of course, with the legislature, and then as part of the state budget conversations. A key part of this is funding, is potential legislative and regulatory changes that would allow for some of this to happen more readily. So we have kind of two corresponding but equally important pathways, right? There's the planning for it, and then how we go about dealing with some of the barriers legislatively and financially.
Okay.
I would just add, Monica, that among the things that were discussed, certainly in the meeting that I attended in September, is that when we are looking at some of these issues, like UPK, the funding is still left to $5,400, per child, and that's a legislative issue. But it was also said to us, and very, very significantly, that the relationship that BOCES has maintained with the county, with state legislators, with industry leaders, that is an important part of what BOCES does, leverages and helps support that. We know, for example, as I said before, that CPSE funding comes through the county, right? But, how significant or how important is that is going to be in large part how we collectively advocate to the counties, in our case Westchester or Putnam, and this idea of combination of regions to really pursue the things that are most important for education is another thing that goes beyond just regionalization within this little one of the 37 different regions.
If there are any further questions, I'll sign that document and send it to Neil tomorrow. I do want to, again, publicly thank Neil Boyle, PNW BOCES Superintendent, District Superintendent, who's done a terrific job facilitating this on behalf of the region so far. Then wanted to shift gears, and in follow-up to the sharing of district goals in July, and we heard from our building leaders at the work session last month, and in anticipation of the board's discussion at the next work session of board goals, wanted to take a couple minutes to share my anticipated goals for this year. This is always an interesting process because for any of us who are in administrative positions, the responsibility is incredibly wide. Right? There are hundreds and hundreds of different priorities that we have. So I really think about these as where it is that I want to be prioritizing my time. Right? And so every week these things become a part of my calendar. And we always say anytime that there's free time in a day or in a week, we then say, okay, we're going to apply it to these things. Right? There are things you have to say no to in order to say yes to what we believe to be some of the most important work in the system at a particular time. So for me, what we've seen over the past few years, and this has been discussed incredibly widely in the system, is the movement toward greater access to interdisciplinary learning opportunities for students. And so we always think about our partners at the Tri-State Consortium when we work with them and they come in and evaluate our programs. They say, how do you take what you're doing from pockets of things to being a systemic part of what your school district is about? And so to me, that's an incredibly important goal from my seat. It's to continue to advance the interdisciplinary work from a series of classes here and a small number of opportunities at PVC and CET to what the system is genuinely about in the next few years. That has a ton of implications for staffing, for human resources, for curriculum development and planning, for professional learning, for scheduling. And so part of that goal obviously involves coordination of all those things to ensure that we can grow this in a way that's sustainable, that's high quality, that provides mechanisms for sharing best practices. Designing these courses between multiple teachers is a science and an art. Right? So we don't want to leave teachers to their own devices without support from colleagues, from research-based best practices in terms of how you combine multiple curricular areas into high-quality units and lessons, and obviously continue to support the instructional coaching model that's now fully developed and fully implemented here for the first time in the history of the district in terms of how we can leverage that work to develop those classes, those units, and those experiences. So to me, we talk about a lot of these goals in terms of multi-year perspectives. That's certainly one. We'll be talking about this years from now, I hope, in the district. But this is, again, continuing. I think we're at a really critical point now where I think the system is starting to see and value this work. I think colleagues are certainly beginning to value that opportunity to collaborate with each other in genuine elbow-to-elbow ways. And so how we continue to leverage that momentum in thoughtful and sustainable ways is really, really important. As has been discussed for some time, our new district committees, an ambitious number, will be meeting for the first time later this month. And so part of my priority in terms of how I devote my time is to ensuring that those, as they get started, stay focused on the work that they are charged or have the opportunity to engage in. It's an incredible amount of administrative and other facilitation involved in having that many different conversations, just scheduling them in terms of availability of staff and students and community members and administrators. And so putting together all of that, ensuring each committee has a clear vision, aligned to the vision map, that the work remains moving in that direction, and that we have regular opportunities to effectively share out what those committees are doing, and evaluating their effectiveness is something that I truly look forward to doing over the next few months and years with our administrative colleagues. Third goal is to think significantly about how we evaluate the effectiveness of some of the programs that we put into place over the past few years, beginning with that collaborative team teaching model, right, which now exists in every building in the district. And so thinking through how do we ensure that what's happening in those classrooms meets the expectations and the vision that we had when we first implemented. And so feedback from faculty, from students, from families, observing classrooms, shadowing students, looking at student performance results both in and out of those model classrooms. Similar approach to master scheduling. What kind of impact is that having in terms of the use of instructional time, student performance, student participation in clubs and other activities, feedback from all of the various stakeholders, and then observing those programs, those classrooms, those activities at each building. How are those behaving? Right? Are they having the desired impact? And then finally looking at the district committees. As we begin that kind of new version of committees here, what is the participation looking like? Looking at summaries of the conversations in those meetings. How aligned are the outcomes of those conversations with what we wanted the mission and vision of those committees to be, and feedback from the committee members and facilitators themselves. And then finally, spending significant time considering how we can better communicate all the various things that are happening in the district with our community. I think work that has become increasingly complex, certainly in our district, and I think in every district over the past couple of years. So developing a genuine and cohesive communication strategy, thinking about how we can engage the community in that conversation around what success in schools should look like for individual students and groups of students, getting feedback from our community and staff about how we're using the various platforms that we use now, including our website, Parent Square, and social media, what's working, what's not, and how our community best accesses information from the district, and when necessary, modifying our practices to do better in that area. So those are the four areas that I look forward to devoting my kind of free time, so to speak, toward. But really, this is work that I think is important for the district, aligned with the vision map. I think is responsive to the work of the district and the buildings, and look forward to pursuing that and providing some updates to the board and the community about how we're looking in all these areas during the course of the year.
Is this open for discussion?
Sure.
This is on. I'm still gonna use. No. Okay, there we go. Thank you. So I took a look at the presentation earlier this afternoon. So I'm going to share a couple of thoughts. So taking a big picture view of these goals, several of them seem to be kind of like program specific, where it's building level, and given your leadership role, I would like to see some of the areas that are also not necessarily addressed in the district committees that we've outlined. So in the spirit of collaborative partnership, so that we all can be successful in our roles, I'm making the following request to add to these goals. So as a BOE member, I need access to robust and relevant data in a timely fashion so that I may make informed decisions about policy, goals, and budgetary directions for our schools. And my understanding of the policy 3120 about the duties of the superintendent is that it falls under your purview to provide that information to help facilitate this. So similar to other school districts in Westchester, I'm requesting that you bring back certain reporting that our district used to do, and that I believe is essential for me, speaking on behalf of myself, to responsibly carry out my work as a BOE member. In addition, in May, we will ask for community support or proposed budget. It is crucial that they understand and easily access in writing consolidated descriptions and data about how our resources have been used and the outcomes. And I also believe that this would help all teachers and staff because everyone would be able to easily find and refer to the same document as opposed to having to pull together various sources in various media formats. So I'm therefore requesting the goals be modified to also include resume a written annual report such as what we have posted on our website from 2020 to 2021, and to resume an annual presentation and report in not this year, but preferably moving forward in October, November, on metrics related to academic outcomes or student achievement reports. And my understanding is that used to be done about regions, AP, SAT, college attendance or retention, state exams, etc. I saw that in Irvington School District, they had a meeting on that on September 30th, and I thought it was excellent what they did. And it's a great example of that kind of work, and I think it would be really helpful for us as a district, and also for me to fulfill my role, the responsibility. And I just also feel that with so many curricular and scheduling changes that we have underway, it's important that we keep a baseline of what's happening in the district. And I don't believe that sharing and tracking this data is opposed to the exciting work that we are doing, and having this information will ensure we are making decisions that are based upon data and being circumspect in how we implement these exciting initiatives so we best serve the students in their learning and growth. It will also help us make more targeted fiscal decisions, which is particularly relevant in today's funding climate. So, I just wanted to say, these are things that we used to do that I think would be really helpful for us to add to the mix moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'd like to chime in as well, because I think some of the things Allison mentioned, we have actually talked about, and actually Allison and I talked about some of these as well. I would like to also echo the request for the return of the annual report. Again, I think it's really great that this data is available in various places, and I think making it easier for community members, students, faculty, everyone involved in our school system to find. It's a benefit because we can get sort of like a picture. It's not the only picture. I want to just, remind us that one of the things that we've talked about is making sure that we're evaluating and speaking about student success in a myriad of ways. And this is just one aspect of how we look at it. It's not the only aspect of how this school district evaluates student performance, student success, learning, and instruction. So I think it's a facet. But it's a facet that we can't really set aside. I think it does have to be centered occasionally. I think the other thing that I'm seeing here that I'm happy to see that that Steve, that you're taking a look at this, is also concretely evaluating some of the new things that that we've sort of been piloting and we've been developing and rolling out to all the school buildings. As these things take place, it's really great to see that we are going to be hearing a little bit more concretely beyond sort of like student experience and what we as trustees, administrators, and et cetera, are observing when we go into classrooms or hearing is actually seeing some of the concrete metrics that you're talking about here in terms of how students are impacted directly in terms of their learning and in terms of their outcomes. I think that, folks are excited about a lot of this change and a lot of this stuff, but I think to sort of be able to assess the sort of the progress from sort of where we started to where we are now to where we want to go is an important part of introducing any sort of new program. Mm-hmm. So I am pleased to see, again speaking for myself, pleased to see some of these things on the table in a more concrete way. The stuff we've been talking about, but to formalize it, I think is really important. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think, certainly we always want to talk about things in both quantitative and qualitative lenses. And I think also, this kind of evaluation lends credibility to the work that's been done by so many talented faculty over the past few years, and then can serve as almost like a midpoint check-in in terms of some of the work of the vision map as well. Right? When we first designed that vision for our schools 3 years or so ago, I think we always thought about the imperative to regularly check in. Right? Is it having the kind of impact that we wanted this work to have? Celebrate the places where it is, and then make changes in places where it isn't. And I think that the staff has taken such great ownership over this work over the past years or so. I think there's a readiness to apply a quantitative lens to it and to see what kind of impact it's having through those metrics. Yeah.
I think those are both good suggestions. The one thing as an observation is that two of the committees, the district committees that you've established, one is feedback and assessment, and the other one is what does success mean in school. And I think those discussions and what those committees provide should give an important lens by which the annual report and which the discussion of during budget season about how that connects to the budget and to our priorities, financial priorities, is important. Because one of the things that I know we did in years past, 2021 being the last time that an annual report was done, was kind of have, a presentation of a bunch of numbers, scores on third grade Renaissance and ninth grade earth science and so on, which really didn't lead, from my experience on the board, to a holistic discussion of how we were doing. It rather led, in some cases, to, well, the scores on the physics regions were not really very good. We weren't as good as the state, or same thing with AP scores. Why is that? And it got to be a discussion that was not helpful to our administration at the time or to the board in how we can do things better. So in terms of what the nature of our annual report would be and how we would measure, assess student outcomes, and how we are meeting what we feel to be the exemplars of success. I think those presentations should connect to where we're going, and it will take some work to kind of figure out how to do that. And maybe that's what the Irvington presentation looked like a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it's something different, but that's what I'd like to kind of just throw into the hopper.
It did have an overview, a little bit of demographics, at least as well as some of those nuts and bolts traditional standards. I hear what you're saying with that, but I also work in academia, and we usually do have these baseline standards alongside with some of the other work that we're doing. So it's just data. It's always about how you then use it, and if any data can be used to say why something's awful and finger point, or it can be used in a way to kind of be constructive about something. But I do think it's important to go back to having in a consolidated way some of these standard forms of data as well.
I'm in agreement. I just think that we want to make sure that we're being constructive and not.
Absolutely.
Yes, I think one way you can do that is by showing or reporting on the data that currently exists, right? And saying it is a step in the direction of moving towards a more different quantitative data set and even qualitative data. But I think starts with here's what we have. We know it's imperfect, and we're going to build upon it with the work of the committees, right? Informed by the work of the committee. But I think it starts with saying, okay, here's what we know we have. It's not perfect, it's not great, and here are the reasons why. and then we just go from it.
Well, then it also can be used data that's used, like you said, to help inform what is the strategic direction of these committees, because you have a sense of what, this is what's working very well, but then these are the other parts that we want to expand upon. So I think it would help, like, improve a lot of the very exciting things that we're doing here.
Okay, thank you again, appreciate the feedback. Shifting wildly again to homecoming, just want to make a quick reference to this was the best homecoming experience that I've had in my years here in terms of energy, student attendance, overall attendance. Obviously the opportunity to have our student athletes play underneath the lights at the new Spencer Field, bringing back the class of 1975 and all the energy around that. So I just want to take a moment again publicly to thank Athletic Director Christine Drago, Carla, that entire team, Joe Barillero and the boosters, the PTSA, all of our parents, our coaches, Bill Tom. It really was an outstanding community effort to create some really special memories for all of us who had a chance to be a part of that week. So I want to say thank you to all of those folks.
Can I just add one thing on that?
Of course.
I'm so sorry. It was just so interesting for me to see the shift happen over the years, because when the boosters first put the lights down on that field, middle school children didn't know whether or not they were invited to go because those were high school games. And we saw CET parents at these events this year, and it all culminated with the dance that the kids were, I wasn't there, we were out of the country, but I heard that they were just in awe walking into the building. So I think that momentum has just caught, and it culminated with Spencer Field, the pride that our student athletes feel whenever they descend onto that field now. It's just, it's the reason that we did a lot of the work that we did in terms of the capital improvements project and all of that. But I just wanted to say that to see that change over the years and to see it kind of all culminate now was just amazing.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I had a community member come up to me at the football game Friday night and say, I get it now. I understand now what it was you were trying to do when you came to the community 3.5 years ago with this project. And I saw longtime community members and graduates visibly emotional about the opportunity to be there at some of those events and watching the next generation of our kids experience that kind of really collegiate field environment. So it was a really special week. Outstanding job to everybody involved. Shifting gears wildly again, let's talk a little bit about technology and screen time. I agree wholeheartedly with the idea that things exist on a pendulum, right? And I remember being an elementary principal in 2009 and saying to the board in my district at that time that we needed to bring smart boards into every classroom with a level of excitement and fervor that I hadn't experienced before as a leader. And that was 16 years ago, right? And so certainly there's been a pendulum of just sort of adding instructional technology and technology in all sorts of ways, not only to our school lives, but to our personal lives. And certainly COVID only exacerbated that, right? And so I do think it's an opportunity now for us to take a moment to look at making sure that our technology use is planful, it's purposeful, that it's not replacing some of the authentic connections and work between a faculty member and a class that technology is not designed to do. And so, in addition, of course, to implementing the cell phone policy, we've started now shadowing students in classes across grade levels, beginning with kindergarten, but across the system, and taking a look and tracking from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. how much time is spent by these students looking at devices, right? Individual devices, classroom devices, for what purpose, right? And can that potentially be replaced by more genuine interactions, right? Because I do think, to speak candidly, I think there are some COVID technology practices that have bled over into a post-COVID school environment, right? And so it's imperative for us to make sure that we develop kind of a trajectory of expectation developmentally of how much screen time we're comfortable with from kids from age 5 through 18 in our system. And so that's going to be part of the work of the technology committee. I applaud Ellen for being kind of the first person into the pool in terms of shadowing students, but Carrie and Craig have now come to me saying they're going to start doing that as well. So the entire team will be doing that. It's actually proven so far to be a really valuable moment and opportunity, and I think it's going to lead to some really great conversations, not only among our administrative team, but among our community. And so I wanted to share that. Also to mention, thanks to Ellen and the collaboration with Pleasantville Schools, Dr. Devorah Heitner will be here on the 22nd. I think the link to sign up for that presentation is still open, so please, if you haven't had a chance to yet and you're available that evening, please make the time to be there. But this will be, in addition to all of our other priorities and goals, certainly an ongoing conversation in response to, I think, what all of society feels to a certain extent, which is kind of a saturation point relative to technology. Shifting gears wildly, there's really no theme here in this presentation
Shifting
tonight.
gears is the theme.
Shifting gears again. This was actually sent to me by some members of the faculty because of how much time we've spent thinking about the paradigm, changing the paradigm of collaboration among faculty members over the last few years. World Teachers Day from UNICEF was celebrated earlier this week, and their theme this year was recasting teaching as a collaborative profession, and the importance of faculty members getting a chance not just to collaborate with each other in the traditional sense of attending meetings together, developing lesson plans together, but genuinely working, as we would call it, elbow to elbow with each other. Right? In almost every other profession, you get a chance to regularly watch and engage in the work that other people are doing, and in teaching, that's in most places that's an incredibly rare opportunity. I think we've done some really good work in making this a regular part of the faculty experience here. And so I just wanted to share that with the board and the community, that we certainly agree wholeheartedly with the theme of World Teachers Day for 2025. And finally, I wanted to make mention of a new communications initiative we're calling Tiger Success Tales. Right? This has come up not only tonight, but in multiple meetings, the idea of success in school on an individual level and on a systemic level looks differently from student to student. Right? And I think for most systems, including ours, there's some dissonance between what we say we value in terms of educating and celebrating the success of the whole child and the students that we communicate about. Right? And our valedictorian and salutatorian and national merit scholars absolutely need to be celebrated. Those are exceptional kids. And we have 1,500 other exceptional kids who are experiencing success on their own trajectories, in their own ways. And so we want to make sure that we have opportunities to celebrate and lift those kids up too. And so the first is an exceptional young man. Mac is a phenomenal young person and a great musician. So he's the first of our Tiger Success Tales. We'll have more coming beginning next week. So I look forward to that, especially in the context of when we think about what success means in schools, not only on a systemic level, but on a student level. It's an opportunity for our community to celebrate something special. That concludes my presentation. Thank you, gang.
Can I say?
Yes.
Just want to say, like, it's very exciting to see Mac being, celebrating on him since he was like 3 and seeing this grow up. So I think the community is excited about this idea. Some of the questions that I've heard is like, how are you guys choosing which children you're going to be focused on? So just want to put a bug in your ear that, like, is it the kind of thing that, teachers sort of solicited? Because the reason why I'm bringing this up is because also, like, I, mom, 2 kids, very different personalities, and I have one kid who would be fine going around telling every single teacher all the accomplishments they did, and the other student who's very accomplished as well, who was mortified about letting anybody know what they were doing. And so I think if the way that students are selected to, like, celebrate this is through the teachers making the families and students know, we need to hear, what you're doing so that we can celebrate you, is an important message, unless there's like some other way that you're discovering these kids. So
This is a faculty-driven thing. Matt came to us from Jazz Sante, and the 3 students who will be celebrated next week came from multiple faculty members at CET. This is absolutely a teacher-driven project. Thank you. Thank you, Mom.
I think Neil has something to add.
No, I just would like this. I have nothing on the superintendent's presentation. I was just going to ask if we could do a little flip on the agenda and do instructional personnel before we do new business, because we do have a member of the administrative staff who is sitting here a long
That's a
time.
wonderful recommendation.
And they never want to listen to us. So I will move.
Love to listen to us.
I will move that the agenda be amended so that new business be moved to item 4 and after ongoing business, and then
Yeah.
we can do that.
I'd also just invite Philomena to leave after her student ex officio trustee report, given that it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
If you would like to do that.
No, I'm going to take you up on that.
So I made a motion. I know it's kind of not at the end of this, because I forgot about it. Well, I'll make the motion after Philomena finishes her report.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So item 2.5, thank you, Superintendent Walker, for all of your shifting changes in that conversation. Item 2.5, student ex officio trustee report, and I will turn it over to our student ex officio trustee, Philomena Zamarco.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to start with the Student Faculty Congress report. So current business, our annual retreat to T-Town takes place tomorrow, actually. We leave around 8. Basically, this trip is where we elect our executive board, so the overall president, vice president, secretary, etc. of the actual Congress itself. We go over Robert's rules for new members, which are just basically like the set of rules that the Congress has to follow. We also hold icebreakers so that people get to know each other more and that no one's scared to collaborate with one another and just to facilitate communication. Freshmen have finished all their elections, so they're fully inducted into the Congress now, so we have a pretty full Congress. Our numbers are actually pretty large this year. We have a lot of at-large positions for people that didn't get elected directly, so they can still be a part of the Congress and still, contribute. An issue that we've been discussing this year is that with the new schedule, we have a lot less built-in meetings for Congress. We used to meet on G-Day mornings, now we have the Tiger Tuesdays, so I think we only have 8 or so meetings left, which is, definitely a brick in the road. But we talked about potential solutions, so we're considering meeting during collaboration periods or extracurricular times, just to give us, some additional meeting time, which seems to have positive feedback from everyone. Everyone seems to agree with that, so just that we get more things done on a realistic timeline. Shifting away from SFC, we had an awesome homecoming week, which ended with a great dance. Everyone was super excited. I think that everyone had mostly seen the field at that point, but people that hadn't, it was just awesome to see. There were a lot of people. I went to most of the homecoming games. There were a lot of people at all of them, so it was just great to see everyone so excited. And I hope that, even though I'm a senior, I hope that the homecoming dance continues as a tradition, because it was a great turnout and everyone had a great time. Senior news, so I've been talking to a lot of seniors. Obviously, we're all fairly stressed with college apps, as all the seniors are at this time. But what's been really helpful is the certain meetings set up for seniors on like the Tiger Tuesdays, the different kind of assemblies and like workshops on, for requesting transcripts or letters of recommendation for teachers. So those have been super helpful. And yeah, they've been taking place during a lot of the Tiger Tuesday slots. Even extracurricular time and collaboration has been pretty helpful in terms of meeting with our counselors for either going over your college essays or going over your application processes, and it's especially helpful for students that don't have free periods throughout their day. So at least I think everyone's been utilizing those periods very well, especially the seniors when it comes to stuff like college apps, which is awesome because this can get to be a very busy and stressful time period for all of us. Tiger Tuesdays in general have been pretty interesting to see. They've been pretty cool. There's a lot of interesting opportunities for different kinds of students. There's just like a slew of options, so there's kind of a choice for everyone that's interested in kind of anything. And to speak on like extracurricular time in terms of clubs, it's been going very well. I'm the vice president of Mandarin Club, and we've had like almost double the amount of students that we did last year. So it's just awesome to see that, like, and even for board game club, just it's awesome to see like just the attendance rising, and the schedule being utilized and effective in a great way. So yeah, that's my report.
I just want to thank you because it's so amazing to hear it from a student, because we can theorize about it, but to hear it come from you and to hear like you actually be enthusiastic about it, it's really rewarding. So thank you so much for that support.
Thank you.
So, as I said, I'd like,
I don't know, I just want, if you want to go, I mean, you can go. I mean, you know you can always go. It's 10 o'clock and I feel...
I have a couple projects to finish tonight. So.
Exactly. I know your evening isn't going to end here.
I have all the information.
I would just like to make...
Thank you, Pauline.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
So I would guess that now during polling the board, I don't have to report on my attendance to the back to Congress because...
You
Took
can
my thumb.
report whatever you want to report.
No, because you said everything.
Actually, you cannot. You covered.
I know, that's
So,
what I'm saying. So I'd like to make a
moving to
motion,
motion, yes.
I'd like to move that the agenda be revised by moving new business as a new,
4.5.
and below 4.5, and actually we can make instructional personnel item 3 and item 3.1 through 3.5, and make new business 4, item 4.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. So moving into item 3.1, formerly item 4.3.
Why don't we just go through all of them, 4.1, 3.1, 3.2?
Oh, I thought you inverted them.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry, Nicole. So close. So close. Item 4.1, tenure recommendation, Marissa Burke. Recommended action, be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby grants tenure to Marissa Burke, special education tenure area effective December 13th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, I don't know if you want to, you don't have to.
Yeah, I'll be happy to say a couple things, Rachel. I'm going to speak on her behalf as well. Marissa is a faculty member who's truly kind of grown up in the system. I believe was a substitute, an aide, leave replacement member of the faculty, and now obviously a probationary member of the faculty. It's been a real pleasure and an honor to watch her grow in her confidence in finding her really wonderful and intelligent voice in multiple grade levels with multiple colleagues. It's been really terrific to watch her trajectory of progress and growth in the system. She's absolutely earned appointment to 10.
And I'd like to echo what Steve said. She has grown tremendously as a practitioner, a communicator, and a collaborator, and I'm extremely proud of her and the work that she does for our most vulnerable students. So, congratulations.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Marissa's been a tiger for a long time. This feels great. Congratulations, Marissa. Item 4.2, a side letter of agreement with the CTA. Recommended action, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the side letter of agreement between the Croton Harmon Union Free School District and the Croton Teachers Association as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Item 4.3, leave of absence, recommended action. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the unpaid leave of absence of Nicole Kelly from her position as Assistant Principal for Pierre Van Cortlandt Middle School effective October 16, 2025 until June 30th, 2026. Such leave of absence may be terminated prior to June 30th, 2026 upon the request of Ms. Kelly and the approval of the district.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Congrats on the leave of absence, Nicole.
Have fun.
This is it, that's it. Item 4.4, appointment, administrative appointment. Recommended action, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the appointment of Nicole Kelly to the position of interim principal for Pierre Van Cortlandt Middle School effective October 17, 2025 through June 30, 2026, unless such appointment is terminated earlier by the district at its discretion. Ms. Kelly shall be compensated as interim principal at an annual base salary of $170,461, which amount shall be prorated as appropriate based upon the period of her appointment, plus an additional stipend of $11,000 for the period of her appointment, which amount shall be prorated as appropriate if her appointment as interim principal is terminated prior to June 30th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Congratulations. Item 4.5, side letter of agreement with CHA. Recommended action, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Croton Harmon Union Free School District hereby approves the side letter of agreement between the district and the Croton Harmon Administrators Association dated September 25th, 2025.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Now it's official.
Now it's official.
Now you can get some rest. if you want.
Have a wonderful night.
Thank
6 hours, 7 hours.
Or 5. Have a good one, guys. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Item 4.1, proposed NISBA resolutions for discussion. At this point, I don't think there's anything to discuss, we'll just write it down.
It's on me. It's
Yes.
Since Sarah.
I will try to be as efficient as I can. Thank you, everyone. And you will see from the, on the agenda, the Advocacy Committee meeting minutes, that we had discussed the resolutions. There were a total of 34 proposed resolutions and 3 proposed bylaws that were submitted to NISBA's Resolutions Committee. In full disclosure, I served as the chair of the NISBA Resolutions Committee this year, and these are the proposed resolutions as they came in. As we discussed as a committee, there were many of these that we came to a consensus on, but there were a couple of resolutions that we did want to discuss with the board. Those would be resolutions 8 and resolutions 11. I did also want to point out that resolutions 13 through 16, these are resolutions that the committee does recommend supporting, but we did want to note for the board that those were that the West Putt Advocacy Committee in its discussions and review of these resolutions either opposed or could not reach a decision on those resolutions. And then resolutions 17 and 18 and resolutions 22 and 23. We agreed, as a committee, we agreed with West Putt's recommendation to oppose those resolutions, even though the NISBA Resolutions Committee did put those forth as recommended resolutions. So I'm happy to discuss any of those if anyone has any questions on those prior to that. Otherwise, we can get into the discussion of resolutions 8 and 11.
I don't have a question.
I
I saw the hand hovering on
Yeah,
the.
are you looking for us to say thumbs up or thumbs down?
So at the end, I think after we discussed resolutions 8 and 11, if anyone had any concerns or contrary opinions on our recommendations, we can discuss those, and otherwise, we'd be looking for everyone's approval to move forward with these recommendations so that we can provide that guidance to Neil for the annual meeting.
And again, for resolutions 8 and 11, you wanted to have a discussion with the board.
Correct. Those were the resolutions that we couldn't come to a consensus on as a committee, so we thought they would benefit from a discussion with the full board,
Okay.
so that we can direct Neil in the right manner.
So, discussion commencing.
Okay.
On number 8,
Yes.
right, about lockdowns. I know it's very difficult to kind of strike the right balance when the data we're talking about is a very horrible incident. I do want to ground us, though, in the fact that while the rationale says there isn't conclusive evidence about the amount of psychological or emotional trauma, there is documented evidence of trauma. And so for that reason, I think I'm for that resolution.
Does anyone else have any other thoughts on resolution 8? Again, for disclosure to anyone watching or with us in the meeting, the resolution 8 is resolved that the New York State School Boards Association shall advocate for the number of lockdown drills to be reduced from 4 to 2 each year.
I'll just bring up the point, this is one of the reasons why we were inconclusive. So we talked about that and also like all the administrative work and overload that goes into like with that and the trauma possibly for kids to this. But the counterpoint we talked about was the possibility, like what if somebody's absent? Because if we're reducing it down to 2 days, then if somebody's absent, also like sometimes people forget something if we wind up doing only once a year. So that was kind of just to give full context for the discussion. I myself am indecisive. I can see both sides.
Just to add some context to it as we discuss this, what we've seen in more recent years is like an evolution in terms of these lockdown drills, right? Like they have to now shut off like one stairwell. It has to be in the morning. It has to be at dismissal. It has to be in the middle of classes changing or anything like that. And I think that direction is to kind of give a different context to these lockdowns so that it's not always the same. Like I remember the fire drills when I was growing up. They were always, we went down the same stairwell. What if that stairwell had a fire? So to not to diminish, because as somebody who got caught in a lockdown at CET with a newborn baby, and I had to hang out in Carrie Bianchi's bathroom until somebody knocked on the door with somebody I didn't know. Like there's definitely this like tipping balance. I don't not see that. But I think that the direction that the people who know about this better than I do have been taking is to kind of to have more the numbers and to evolve them and to reduce that number that would not allow for that opportunity is just what I'm thinking in reviewing this. So that's my feedback on that.
I concur, actually, with everything you said.
I also concur because I'm thinking about how, you talk to some extent about drills trying to instill something akin to muscle memory, whether it's for staff in this case, and perhaps for older high school age children, for example. But I participated in my synagogue in a security program where in the middle they said, okay, you people who are attending this program, we're going to have a lockdown drill. You got 5 seconds. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? And realizing what people did, and of course we were all adults, it was not particularly, people didn't really have a good sense of where to go. I think we probably, in this situation, should err or support the current 4. I do note that one of the things that the consensus is, and I think perhaps even by statute or regulation, is that the lockdown drills, although they are lockdown, should be conducted in a way that minimizes or reduces the possibility of trauma. Don't have people running down the hall, firing fake guns. Don't do things like that, because that can increase the trauma for students. So in general, I think I would not support.
Yeah, and just to add to that, and what you're saying there, these are done in collaboration with local law enforcement. So then you're also diminishing the opportunity that those players have to actually practice those elements of lockdown. And in different, I know our local police department, they're on for 3 days, they're off for 2 days. I mean, just to increase the opportunity that we would have to be able to run through those. I mean, God forbid emergencies.
Could I just ask, I'm just curious from the administrators and like our building staff, what their opinions on this are?
Yeah, we haven't discussed it formally. I will share, I'll say my opinion is, in a really difficult decision like this one, if we're going to err on one side or the other, I think we err on the side of preparation for what will be a worst case scenario. And so I would advocate for continuing with this work. For many of the reasons noted, I think in a lot of ways it's as much for our faculty and staff as it is for our kids. Our faculty and staff need to know in those circumstances how to guide students. And because we do vary times of day and other circumstances with Alteris, with Croton PD, we can in a lot of ways manage the psychological impact that it has on kids. But we have staff that can do that. But we can't manage a situation in which we haven't adequately prepared for that kind of circumstance. I would advocate for staying.
So that argument's predicated on that 4 is enough.
Fair. Yes.
And
That's fair.
anybody that's ever done, we're talking about muscle memory, 4 times a year does not create muscle memory.
You may be right. I mean,
But I respect everybody's.
I think I tend to agree on erring on that side. One thing that I would bring up is, and I think this has been done before, but just resources, because I think families, parents also should, have a role in preparing children and making sure they understand what it's for, et cetera. And I think the district in the past has maybe provided resources for those conversations. Do I have that right? Okay.
Yeah.
I think as much as we can be strong on that as well to sort of mitigate as much as possible the trauma aspect of it would be good.
Yeah, the principals usually put it in their weekly on this kind of thing.
So parents are notified, like directly before the lockdown drills happen, which has been kind of standard practice for some time now.
Yeah, notification plus resources.
Resources to talk about it, yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think to Neil's point and to Anna's point, right, these lockdown drills have evolved over time to become more trauma informed, and also to provide different scenarios so that we are hopefully, preparing our faculty and staff and our students to be safe in the case of emergency. So. But yeah, we wanted to bring it before because it was really something that Westcott couldn't come to an agreement on as well. On the flip side of it, I think the rationale for the resolutions committee was more on the side of, right, we did recognize, right, the trauma that these do create, and that this would obviously be a baseline, right? Schools in their own determination can decide to raise that number, but this would be the minimum. So. But it sounds like we have come to a consensus that we would like to oppose this resolution.
I agree.
Like that.
All
right, so then we will move on to Resolution 11. So Resolution 11 is resolved that the New York State School Boards Association support the state to safely incorporate AI into curriculum and district operations. And again, this is one that we wanted to bring forth to have a discussion with the full board about.
I guess I want to first ask, what does that mean?
I think that was perhaps the major sticking point, admittedly, in the multiple conversations I've had with different constituencies about this specific resolution, is that it is written incredibly vaguely. And so it doesn't provide, there are instances in which a vague resolution provides lots of flexibility to NISBA in the way that they would engage in this advocacy work on our behalf. And there are times that, maybe it would benefit from a little bit more detail. I will say that the rationale itself does provide a little bit more detail, but it is not, it's still rather vague.
I mean, we have a district that kind of, got in front of AI at the very beginning. I don't know that we need to support the state getting involved in that. Support the state to safely incorporate AI into curriculum and district operations. Like, our district has addressed that. I don't know that we need.
Yeah, I mean, operations is like, and paying invoices, sure, but curriculum.
And whose curriculum, and what curriculum, and how? Like, we're just literally having conversations about re-examining what we want to take out that's not necessary, and any kind of mandate that would say, I want to support this, I think is giving a green light to
My reading of it, and just thinking, is that it's a supportive role to kind of support the safe and essentially regulation of AI and how it is connected to curriculum and education. So sort of like, this is something we got to look out for because it's important. It's going to shape a lot of things, and so we have to have a strong grasp on the regulatory framework, and that NISBA would play a support role in that, as opposed to like, we want this to happen, let's make it happen, let's support it to happen.
I think there was also like the recognizing the fact that this does seem to be something that the federal government is looking at and trying to push forward in a way, or expand in a way that states want to be able to understand and provide some safety guidelines and frameworks. To your point though about the into curriculum becomes kind of murky language in that we're generally not advocating for legislators to be mandating curriculum. So that wouldn't be something that we would be looking to do, but it's I think the thought behind it was more about creating a safety framework and helping New York State be proactive in how New York State responds to the expansion of AI.
With all due respect, if that was the framework behind it, then NISBA should have drafted a resolution that specifically said that.
Correct. Well, so this isn't a NISBA resolution, it's a resolution from a school board. So.
Right,
No,
from a school board.
This is from the New York.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
School
This
Board
is from the New York
Authority
State Board.
Director.
Yes.
So
You're right. My apologies.
my sense is I think I would oppose this. But the reason is there's several different things going on here. Part of it, as I see it, is school districts kind of saying, this is AI stuff out there, and we don't really know what to do. We need the state to kind of help guide us, which is fine as a thing to do, but guide us where and how, as was pointed out. What does that mean? Secondly, I think there is a concern that Sarah talked about the federal government being, being on one side of the ledger rather than the other, and trying to push that on us and make it, for school districts should stand up. But once again, what does it mean, support the state to safely incorporate? What does safety mean? We don't know. What does how incorporation mean? State SED can do that. SED probably is thinking about this. But, and there's nothing that precludes NISBA from participating in those discussions as any, member of the community or interest group would participate, and I'm sure would be called upon to participate. But I don't see this as adding anything.
I concur with Neil. I think there's no reason to support a poorly written resolution. It doesn't, it's the rationale is clear, but the way it's written, I think Neil, you've covered all the same questions that I would have.
Any other thoughts there?
I agree with that.
I agree.
All right. We've got consensus on that as well. Thank you, everybody, for discussing on these.
Before we go on, a couple other things. At the NISBA Q&A session, even though we weren't supposed to talk about the substance and advocate for or against, on item 13, resolution 13, reinstatement of whole milk as an allowable option. NISBA supports this. Westport opposes it. The point that was raised in that discussion was simply, look, medical practitioners say, particularly for young students, whole milk provides nutritional value more than better than skim milk. So why don't we do this? Or at least give the choice to the parents or the students to select whole milk. And I'm wondering, what was it that that Westport felt was why they opposed it?
So Westport had felt, to be perfectly honest, that there was nothing necessarily wrong with this resolution, but that in the grand scheme of issues facing public education and the amount of advocacy time that we get in front of our legislators, that this was not where our priorities lay. And this was not something that we wanted those who would advocate on our behalf to be spending precious little time advocating for when there are clearly larger issues.
Sounds like Westport was judging.
They're lactose intolerant.
There was, clear support for, yes, the whole milk is a good thing, but yeah, that in the
I've never heard
in
a
the scheme of things,
resolution be
that was-
opposed because it wasn't thought of as worthy of time for advocacy, but I'm down with whatever regarding this particular issue.
Well, I think we're deciding that we will actually support the
We
resolution.
did, as a committee, we decided that, there was no harm in us supporting it, and we
Yeah.
did vote that it was fine to support it, but NISBA did oppose that.
That's
NISBA.
NISBA.
Westport opposed it.
Yeah.
So I did want to note, we have stated that we would recommend this. So that's 13 and 14, with Westport opposed, but we are recommending support. 15 and 16, Westport could not come to reach a consensus, but again, we are recommending support of those resolutions.
So it was just 8 and 11.
It was just 8 and 11 that we wanted to have a conversation with. There are some resolutions that NISBA is supporting that we are recommending opposing in concert with Westport.
Right.
And that's 17, 18, 22, and 23.
Was Westport's reason for 14 the same as, sorry, I keep forgetting, the same as 13? Just not worth the time?
Hold on, let me come to this.
That's the
13 is
exercise.
30.
So Westport's reasoning for this was that, not that it wasn't worthy of the time, but that there is already, there has been a direction, legislation that is before the governor that would provide a survey of all districts regarding their recess time. And so the Westport committee felt that it was more advantageous to get those survey results and to see what the issue was and see whether this was an issue prior to advocating for it. Like, since this is already before the governor and that this survey data will be collected, that it would be better to wait for to gather that data and see what it says.
But the committee did not agree with that.
Westport, that is the reason Westport decided not to support
Correct.
this resolution.
But the advocacy committee says we should support this resolution.
Yes, so, Yeah, we like it.
We like it.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, like it's
We
another
feel
meeting
like-
that our kid
yeah.
could possibly have more recess time. Yep.
Cool.
Sounds like we're good, right?
Yeah, unless anyone had any other questions on any of the other resolutions. So we have provided then clear instructions to Neil on all 34 resolutions and 3 bylaw amendments. So he will serve as our delegate on the 16th.
Yes, and one thing that I will tell you, just so everybody knows, that obviously there may be some amendments, or we haven't seen them yet, or there may be some compelling arguments that are raised. That's why people speak, and I may, as I have on 1 or 2 occasions over the years, be persuaded otherwise, but I have our direction.
No persuasion, Neil. Just go ahead. Go
I'm
ahead.
not persuading anybody, although I think they want me to.
Thank you for doing the work of going through all the resolutions and making your recommendations.
Yes.
That's us.
Yep.
Thank you to my fellow trustees on the advocacy committee. I actually was not at this meeting. I had a work conflict, so thank you for taking on the work of the committee and doing that. And thank you, Neil, for acting as our
Represent.
voting delegate. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we will close that discussion and we will move into the consent agenda.
No, we have ongoing business.
I'm sorry, we will not. We will go into ongoing business, which is item 5.1, the independent audit report presented by PKF O'Connor Davies LLP. Recommended action, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the external audit report prepared by PKF O'Connor Davies LLP with corrective action plans for the year ending June 30th, 2025, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question,
We had a discussion at the beginning.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Now, moving into item 6.1, approval of the consent agenda. Recommended action, be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby approves the consent agenda items.
So moved.
Second.
On the question,
I just had a quick question about facility use schedule and just whether these rates have been updated and just how we determine the rates in general.
Sure. So in light of our capital upgrades and the fact that we have not modified this fee schedule in over 5 years, a team that's led by myself, Brad Kennedy, our Director of Facilities, our Athletic Director, Christine Drago, Kelly Lent, and some of our support staff, we met. We gathered data from surrounding districts in the region to kind of get a gauge as far as what their building use fees were, some guidelines for usage of turf fields, etc. We developed this schedule. So the existing spaces on the building use schedule were increased modestly. I think compared to 5 years ago, they've increased between $2 and $5 per space. And we, of course, had to add on the turf field at PVC, Spencer Field, and the lights. So those were additions where we gathered information from predominantly Westchester County districts, developed a fee schedule in the lower range of the information that we gathered. And we thought, you know, some districts have very extensive schedules where each component of like the field is a separate rate. They'll have a multi-tiered schedule where they'll have different rates for 4 different types of user groups. And we felt that let's start off really lean. If we need to modify and add on based on experience and anecdotal information, that we will look at it from that point. But we felt that this was a safe starting point for the district.
Thank you.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion Opposed? You're right. All in favor? Abstain? I'm sorry. Abstain?
Opposed, abstained.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. We will then move to our closing of the meeting and our second hearing of the public. So if you'd like to be heard, please approach the podium, state your name and address.
Hi, Jill Anderson, O'Reilly Court. I don't give my full address because I have privacy concerns in general, so that's why. I just wanted to say, nothing written for this, but I'm really excited about the launch of the committees, and a lot of people are really upset about not getting on committees. And I would love for there to be some transparency from the district, as I believe this was more district than Board of Ed related, with how people were selected for committees, how they were told if they weren't on them. And I'm hoping that the reason a lot of people aren't on them is because there were just so many interested people and there was a really fair and equitable way to choose. I will say that I did apply for 2 committees. I did not hear from either of those committees if I was on them. There was a specific day when people heard from one if they weren't on them. And I was told I was going to be on one, and then I brought an attention to the board that that I think might have caused some sort of retaliation in why I wasn't on the committee. So I'm very concerned because I just want to make sure parents always feel that they can be honest and open about anything they go through in the district, and not feel that if that's not the case, that's wonderful. I am going to be on a different committee, and I'm very excited because all I care about is children and helping this district. But I think that it would, when there isn't communication about something, people fill in the gaps. And that is the problem, I think, overall here, is that like when we don't hear how something is happening, people have ideas, they make assumptions, and I just think that collaboration and communication needs to be clear in all areas so that we can know, wow, we had this many people that applied, and this is the criteria we used, and then people might not feel as upset, because right now I just have to speak on behalf of a lot of members of the community that are really, really upset that they weren't picked for committees, and hopefully that can be cleared up, and then these committees can work really well together to like make a positive change for the district. So that's just one other thing I'd like to ask for. Thank you.
Now move into item 7.2, board reports. Start with advocacy.
Well, I think we just had a conversation, so we were good.
I wanted to give you an opportunity in case you had anything else to say.
Nothing else to add.
I don't think we're
Ditto on
here.
audit.
I love it. Oh boy, here comes board development.
But I will talk very quickly. So board development actually met today. I'm going to keep these on. And just a couple of quick updates. We are looking forward to our fall Board of Education retreat on, may I say the date correctly? Monday, the 27th of October. So there will be more details to follow, but please make sure that that date is the most important one on your calendar. The next most important date coming up on your calendar is our October 30th work session, during which we will, in the public meeting, discuss our goals as a school board for the 2025-26 school year. So that will be a portion of the work session that we'll be holding. On the board development front, we went over some other administrative sort of topics that relate to our committee's purview, including the evaluation of the superintendent, a timeline for that, the evaluation of the board itself, and a timeline for that, the general cadence of sort of the work that we're doing over the course of the year. We also reviewed a policy that we're making a recommendation to the policy committee on. We reviewed our board norms and protocols. We'll be talking to the board about sort of thinking about ways that we can formalize that document and make it more accessible so that not only we as trustees, but our community as a whole can understand what the role and function of board trustee is and how the Board of Education itself operates. I'll actually pick up on Jill's point that she just made at the podium, which is when people don't hear about these things, they fill in the gaps. This is a great way to fill in the gaps for the community about the work of the school board and how the school board actually operates in a governance capacity. So that was a great question that came up today, and I think we made some progress on that. The last thing is that in terms of the fall, we had a good discussion about ways to sort of adapt something that we have found to be a really productive professional development opportunity for trustees, which is our running walks through the buildings. So we'll be reaching out to the administrative team to actually bring back the focus that we had on one of our CHHS running walks last year, that we found, those trustees who attended found it really productive as a way to see some of the new practices the district is doing in real time as they're actually happening in the classroom. It was really exciting, and we want to make sure that we have opportunities in each of our schools and also expand further into other areas of the district's work with those running walks. So we'll be talking to the administrative team before we announce anything further on that. That's it for board development.
Thank you. Communications?
Great. Yeah, so communications met on Monday. I'll try to be very quick as we go through here. We had a really robust discussion about one of our goals for this year, which is reviewing and updating the BOE section of the website, and then sort of tying in with some of board development's discussion about formalizing our board norms and protocols, in providing some more information about what the work of the board is, the role of the board, the role of the superintendent, how different meetings are held, like what is a business meeting, what is a work session, how do we do these things, what is executive session, so to provide information for people. So we had a really good conversation about that and getting started with some of that work, and looking at I think as a committee, looking to review how that section is currently, kind of Q&A things, make sure we're getting everything up to date, and then looking to put together some recommendations that we'll be able to bring before the full board in terms of additions and ways to make that section a little bit more robust. The other goal that the committee spoke about for this coming year was ways that we can increase our engagement with community groups and school affiliated groups, so our PTAs, our booster clubs, CHEF, and really thinking about ways in which that we can have a more collaborative relationship. And I think informally, members of the committee have had conversations with the PTAs, and I did get to SEPTA and CHEF both before today, in order to gauge their interest in having a board liaison / point person. Not that would be someone who would be assigned necessarily to attend every PTA meeting or every CHEF meeting, but someone who could be a point person for their board, could potentially attend meetings on occasion, but also be there to get information from them about upcoming events, and also be a resource for them when there are questions about things going on, work at the district. So we wanted to sort of put that forth to the full board and sort of get a gauge of people's interest and availability to be one of these point people for each of these, for our PTAs, SEPTA, CHEF, and the Booster Club. So if you would like to indicate your interest, I guess send that to board leadership.
Sure.
Send those indications of interest to board leadership, and then we can start to coordinate with those groups and start getting things going there. After that, we talked about some of the upcoming district communications. As Steve mentioned, the Tiger Success Tales, and some of the ongoing communications that will be coming out with regard to the future facilities plan as we finish that up, and those types of communications. We will be asking our board members who are attending the NISBA convention to kind of go back and file with Jackie some of the highlights from presentations that they saw, so that she can put that together and put together an article for that. And then we also discussed the potential for looking at some survey work that we could do as a community, as a committee, that we would put forth before the board to send out to the community in terms of the work of the board, so getting some information there. So I think I've covered it all. Yeah, that's it for communications.
Thank you. Policy?
Policy Committee met on September 16th. We discussed various policies. Did not have anything to report for this meeting. We are meeting on October 14th, next Tuesday, and I am hopeful that we will have some policies ready for first reading, whether they will be put on the October 30th agenda because it's a work session, it may or may not, but we'll leave that to board leadership to decide whether to include them or just wait till November to include them. Assuming we approve it, which I'm hoping we do.
Liaison reports. I don't know that we formally have any liaison reports, although I think that we liaised at the PVC PTA meeting. Do you want to speak?
No, you go ahead, because I can do academic budget pedestrian.
So I attended the PVC PTA meeting. It was their first meeting of the year. They approved their budget. They also had discussion about their upcoming events. There is a sign-up genius for volunteers still needed at Friday Night Stripes. There was also some discussion by a very thoughtful student in continuing dance, and it was an opportunity to highlight some of the overlap that could happen within the buildings, just in terms of suggesting there's a $750 deficit, I think, in terms of the budget and what they would need, but the DJ costs $500, but we have a DJ club at the high school, so it was interesting to be there and kind of convey some of that. I'm trying to think of what else we were talking about.
What was the main thing? I mean, that is a
The
big
dance,
focus.
yeah, the dance was a big, thing, the budget. That's really all I have on that, yeah.
Student Faculty Congress, I know that Philomena gave a rundown of what was discussed. There's one thing that was discussed by me because they asked me to kind of...
I heard you were the only one there for a minute.
Yes, I was the first one there.
Yes.
But then I was asked to discuss, kind of what's going on the board, because Philomena was not present during this part of the meeting. And one of the things that I said was, I described the committees that the district is establishing, that Steve talked about earlier, and I invited Student Faculty Congress to see if there were students who would be interested in participating as members of those committees to the extent that we don't have student members already placed on those committees. And I'm assuming if there is interest, that will come to the superintendent, probably through somebody at the high school, whether it's the principal or Mr. Bahamut from Student Faculty Congress Advisor. There were other things discussed, but that's really all I want to add at this point.
Other committee reports, I guess, two things. So some of I believe the building planning councils across the district met this afternoon. I joined the CET Building Planning Council for my first time being in that space. And it was, as I think was mentioned earlier in Anna's president's report, it's great to see that the building planning councils are taking a really focused approach on exploring and discussing together how the district's goals are going to be realized at a building level. The CET Building Planning Council has identified sort of 4 target areas in terms of the goals that they want to talk about over the course of the year. For people who are listening at home who don't know, building planning councils, I think, again, as Anna mentioned, are joint decision-making sort of mechanisms that bring together teachers, parent representatives, and building administration to talk about issues that are relevant to each of the school buildings. So that was a nice kickoff. The other BPC that I'm part of is the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee as the board's liaison to that BPC. And although I unfortunately was not able to attend the last meeting because it conflicts with our board meeting, I did want to say that I had a wonderful conversation today with our Five Corners crossing guard, Chuck, who is doing an incredible job. For anyone who is, who dipped into Croton social media yesterday, you can see the accolades for this dedicated community member who I think has made that intersection a better place for walkers, bicyclists, scooters, and cars as well. So I want to just commend him for all the work that he's doing there, and hopefully we'll be able to have him there for a long time because he's doing wonderful, wonderful work, and he's very, very committed to student safety. So I was really glad to make that connection with him again today.
That's great.
Yeah.
I did attend the PDC Building Planning Council meeting, and I know it's late in the evening, and I'll make it very quick, but I do want to kind of cover all the material that was covered because I was so invigorated when I left this meeting. So an update was given with respect to construction. 95% of the construction is done at PDC. There's a water main construction, which is what you see if you kind of like go through that parking lot or are standing at my front door. And then there's some additional work going on in the back, but the playground is up, it's running. The kids were on it even at 4:30. They just can't get enough of it. And it's Michael kind of reported a lot of the success there. I did inquire as to the mud bench for any of the mud bench fans. It is still there. It is still covered. It is still intact. Yeah, those stories during COVID still warm my heart. To tag on to what Emma was saying at PDC, the focus is also going to be on what success means in school. Michael went on to reiterate fostering pursuit of passions, promoting future-focused teaching and learning, having kids engage and learning across disciplines. He went over again the newer approach to science this year, and that it's exploratory and phenomenon-based, and it's going to be very experiment-oriented. And then he touched on something that I thought was very exciting, which was the intercession days that they're going to do in December, and he gave a couple topics. One of them is life lessons from the Twilight Zone. So that, and then there's going to be cooking classes and additional things.
Those are for middle school students?
Yes.
Not for board members who may also learn about that?
Yeah. This is the first year that they're doing eighth grade algebra. There was a little bit of discussion about success in terms like what success in school means, and challenging students in different ways. He said there was great success in transitioning to the no cell phone. He said it was easiest because he tells students that it's state law. And then they have a saying around PDC where it says they say to each other, if you want to have a good day, make sure your phone is off and away. And students were often saying it to each other as they're walking into the building, he reported. Kind of hunkering down more on what does success mean in Croton Harmon schools before you could kind of get into the nitty gritty of that. There was a conversation about just educating the community about what success means from a parent perspective, from a student perspective, and what gives students positive feelings about learning outside of school. Because there are a lot of students who will make it through the day and then get home, but they don't feel excited to come to school the next day. So kind of like what would be that transition piece? And there was some discussion about how challenging that could be in middle school with all of the developmental hormones and feelings and everything else, right? And then also a little bit of discussion about criteria developed for key assessment to evaluate students. And as Michael does, he asks a big question, right? He said, what do we value most for our kids to demonstrate? So we were sent away at his last PVC Planning Council meeting with that thought. But it was very exciting work. Everybody was participating and having these conversations and asking hard questions and not giving quick answers, but kind of looking at it from a very higher level, wanting to come at it with a mutual understanding of the work with like the best of intention, and it was definitely student success focused, so that's pretty exciting for an hour. And then we toured the building. I sent some of my fellow trustees some of the photos. The chandelier is up in the guidance center, which really makes a difference in that room. And then some of the community members hadn't seen the renovations to the flex room. I hadn't seen the teacher hub and how exciting of a space that is for building level meetings. I didn't realize. I thought it was more like a break room or something, but no, they're using it for building level meetings. Yeah, it's a professional development space. So those are great, exciting changes that happened at PTC.
I feel like I was there, that's great.
Good, I'm glad. I will report back at the next one. It was very exciting. I'm not curriculum. I felt like the communications community is equally like excited. I just might be very excited.
Second win as well, yeah.
I know.
Okay.
Mark will be so happy.
We'll be going to bed at like
The
1
the high school building planning council met also today. We talked, just a few key dates to remind members of the public. There's be a communication going out tomorrow around the parent-teacher conferences that are happening on the day of November 4th. There is the PSAT for 11th graders on Friday, October 17th, with 90 kids having signed up so far. It's closed. There's 90 kids that signed up so far. The 10th grade PSAT will be in March, on March 20th. But communication will go out around the sign up there. We did talk about how we can better communicate with families, and one of the things I was discussing is most of the setting, I think the default setting on the communication is daily digest as opposed to individual, and we're just talking about how can we get the word out to switch it out of daily digest so people can get some more focused communication. Then we spent a lot of time talking about the Hall of Distinguished Graduates, which is very exciting for this year. Be on the lookout for that communication coming out next week.
I attended the Health and Safety Committee meeting last week. So we had a very good meeting in which we reviewed the construction updates. We had done a walkthrough in the previous meeting, but this was sort of going through and noting that we were down basically to punch list items. We noted the AED that had been added down to the Spencerfield concession stand. We had an update about the Professional Development Day in December, in which our staff will be have the opportunity for some optional training in AED, Stop the Bleed, Narcan, and then we discussed and drafted responses to some health and safety emails that had come in, and we made sure that we had discussion on those and got those responses right out. And that was health and safety.
Before we end this, can we just acknowledge that for some of us, this has been like a 9-hour day of school board meetings, truthfully. Some of us started at 2:30 this afternoon, or at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Took a short break for dinner, and it does feel good to be able to report on all this work, the enthusiasm about these building planning council meetings, the enthusiasm about the district committees, hearing the superintendent articulate goals that are really concrete and taking us forward. I mean, I hope, I feel like this is a very good meeting. I just want to say that at the end of it, even though it's 11 o'clock, we're getting a little tipsy here with the overabundance. But it's like, that was a full work day of school board after the day that I started feeling, 7 a.m. at my job.
Huge shout out to Barry and his wife, because dinner was the
Dinner was
worst.
the worst. Thank you, Barry, if you're still listening. That was the best dinner I've had all week.
I already sent him an email.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. They were delicious.
I remembered what I was going to say. Speaking at the Hall of Distinguished Graduates, Chase Itter had Anna Samuel's artwork in the room and had it displayed last night at the back to school night at the high school. And that was just, it was nice to see graduate work there, still doing in the halls. That, I think, concludes board reports. Did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
We will now move into polling of the board. I don't know if anyone has anything for polling.
I have a couple of real quick things for polling. I just wanted to highlight to everyone that tomorrow, if you have availability at your lunchtime and want to take on some professional development, the first of Westcut's School Desk Lunch Webinar Series is kicking off with a joint business official and lawyers discussion of contracts. And the legal and fiscal ramifications of contract negotiations. So if you have time, you can still sign up. You just need to let Denise know. That will be from noon to 1:30. You can also check out the other upcoming events that will be going on at Westcott, namely the next advocacy meeting, which will be on October 27th. Also, I want to mention too.
October 27th is the night of our retreat.
Yep.
It is the night of our retreat.
You're right. But this is, yeah.
You'll just split yourself.
So, yeah.
Yes.
So,
Are you going to do the contracts thing tomorrow?
So I'm going to try and sign on to that tomorrow. It depends on what else happens. So the other thing I wanted to note, though, for my colleagues who are attending the NISBA convention is that the app is open. If you haven't downloaded it yet, please do. I find it really easy to use that app to get from location to location and see what different sessions are going on. And then it's good for us to be able to sort of ping each other to see what sessions we're attending, so we can kind of spread the wealth and hit all bases. So those are the only things I wanted to note there.
I would add on this, as I do every year, I will be downloading every presentation, every PowerPoint which we'll have as a resource. I know.
They're available on the app also.
The share folder is created for you specifically. There's a link and you'll be receiving it tonight. Made it today, just to plop all that stuff in there.
Well, but I can also plop in all stuff from all the prior years as well.
Yes.
Wrap it up.
That's it. It's the same as these resources.
Anyone else have anything for pulling of the board? Item 7.4, items needed for the next Board of Education meeting. My understanding is that there will be homework for the trustees in advance of that meeting. So be on the lookout for that in preparation for the meeting, for the work session, which will be on the board developing its goals. Item 7.5, adjournment. Recommended action that the Board of Education adjourns the meeting at 11:05 p.m.
So moved.
Second?
On the question.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Good evening. Thank you for being here or viewing it at home or watching it on your